the NCAA is just refusing to leave Trinidad Chambliss alone. There is a very logical reason why that also is rather annoying.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Is Clemson done? Tom Fornelli thinks so. That will be discussed on today's show. And Utah's outlook. Are they right back towards the top of the Big 12? On today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I literally have about 9 tickets on my phone right now that I bought via Game Time. They are the best. So too is Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss to help us discuss the never-ending legal saga of Trinidad Chambliss and the NCAA. And I think at a glance, it seems like the NCAA might really have it out for this guy because they just won't let him be and let him play even when a judge says, yep, you're good to go, you're cleared, you can play. We all thought it was over. And then there was a report recently that the NCAA is pursuing the matter with over 600 pages of documentation or an indictment, whatever you want to call it, trying to argue that he shouldn't be eligible to play. And Stephen, I suspect that this is all just a giant posture, just a giant kind of virtue signal to have a feather in their cap. See, we're trying to enforce our rules, but we can't. This could all actually work out for the NCAA and they could get what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, all they were looking for was an antitrust exemption. That's what the whole Trinidad Chambliss case is about. So the NCAA can cry poor. This is going on. These poor state judges jump in. We don't have authority over anything, yada, yada, yada. They go to their Save College Football Summit roundtable, which the table was rectangle, but that's beside the point. And then Congress putting out bills and all of that. And that's what this is about. They filed their appeal to get the tweet and the buzz the night before they did that intentionally so they can walk in and say, yes, just last night, see what's going on. It was 654 pages. 18 pages of it was the actual appeal. The rest of it was the NCAA rules manual. Seriously. And it was all for show. Nobody thinks the Supreme Court of the state of Mississippi is going to even hear this at this point. And even if they do, the odds of them getting through and being successful is not good. Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the starting quarterback for Ole Miss, but he's being used by the NCAA to kind of prove a point to hopefully get this antitrust thing. And it's just a sad state of affairs, honestly.
In a manner of speaking, yes, because I think that for a lot of more casual college football fans, I think it can paint Chambliss in a somewhat negative light, or it just doesn't create the sort of story or discussion around him and what he's done in his college career and what he could do with Ole Miss this year that he deserves to have talked about him, at least in the offseason. Once we start playing football again, I'm sure that will shift in the positive, but you know, do you think he wants to have his face out there plastered across articles or shows like this one and hear all sorts of folks talking about his eligibility? He's got to go back and forth. And, you know, there is something that he has to continue to deal with it, right? When this action is being brought, even if it's just kind of for show, well, that still involves a process and he's got to keep talking to his lawyers and do all that sort of stuff. So from that point of view, I do think it's unfortunate and not ideal. From the NCAA standpoint, though, it does make sense, even though they are probably aware that they have no path to stopping him from playing in 2026 for the Rebels and being their quarterback. It does make sense that they're trying to compile a case because it feels like, and Friday was kind of the first step in this direction, right? It feels like this is the moment, if the NCAA is going to get that antitrust exemption, that they have to have data points to show Congress members that, hey, this is why we need it, because we're trying to enforce our rules, but we can't enforce these rules, and we've got to be able to. And as crappy as it feels, as crappy as it might sound, I don't know that that's actually the worst outcome for college sports. I think we're living in the worst outcome where judges are, partially running college football in a manner of speaking, and there isn't a unified set of rules. And the NCAA's view is, well, us having that exemption to enforce whatever rules we seem fit might be the best way to get there. And I honestly, Stephen, think they might be right. Even though it would open up a host of new problems, I think it would be the best way to solve some of the ones that have popped up in the last couple of years.
Potentially, but the NCAA, let's not make them blameless. They kind of created this situation, as well as all the NIL stuff going on with some of their decisions, allowing a professional athlete to go to Baylor, and all of that happened. Other people trying to come in and play. Listen, the NCAA selectively enforcing their rulings is part of the large problem that everybody has right now with the NCAA. Trinidad Chambliss is going for his 6th year of eligibility. There have been 6-year seniors ever since like the 80s. I can remember those pretty well. This isn't a rare occurrence. This is a fairly normal occurrence. While Trinidad Chambliss was on the stand for his hearing, the NCAA cleared yet another player for a 9th year of eligibility.
At Montana, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of this is the NCAA's fault. That 9th year should not be an option, no. Especially when you're crying poor for somebody getting a 6th year. And stuff like that optically looks back is like, these guys are just picking and choosing winners how they want to see them go. I know at Ole Miss, it might not be true, but it's the perception. Everybody wants to talk about, the SEC, but the perception at Ole Miss is if anytime you're threatening LSU or Alabama or anything like that, the NCAA will come in and shut you down, because traditionally that is what they've done at Ole Miss. So it's not as cut and dry as this is best for college football. It might be a situation to where a completely different organization needs to be created with the bylaws being generated for this era instead of kind of retrofitting Newt Rockne rules for this era.
I don't know what that commission looks like. I don't know where that commission gets the authority. I don't know who's going to run that necessarily. Like, you can poke holes in any of those 3 scenarios: NCAA, major governing power, what we currently have, or create a new governance structure. I think it's easy to poke holes in all of them, but with the way it is currently set up, rules are regularly not enforced. And yeah, the NCAA has had a patchy history with their application of certain rules and eligibility requirements. But you look at what we've got right now, and a judge in this court can rule that this player is eligible. You think about Charles Bediako, the Alabama basketball player that came back and was trying to get another year of eligibility, or these guys coming back and playing, and it is the NCAA who's correctly saying, no, you declared for the draft. You played in an NBA game. You played in the G League. You're not coming back and playing college sports again. And I don't think anyone would want to see that in college football, where a guy could go to the NFL and play, make a practice squad maybe, and then decide, I still have another year. I'll come back and play a season of college football. I don't know how far away we even would be from that hypothetical, because it's literally happening in college basketball as we speak, and the NCAA is trying to enforce that stuff. And you're either at the mercy of the NCAA or at judges across the country who are more often than not ruling that, yeah, this is not, amateur sports. This is just another professional league, basically. And you've always been able to move professional leagues. Like, essentially, what judges have, collectively kind of dictated in certain circumstances is the NCAA or college sports is almost like going to play in a European league. When a player from your favorite NFL team nowadays isn't good enough to cut it and he's on the practice squad but he wants to play, what might he do? He might go play in the UFL or the CFL. And I don't think that blurring that distinction between college sports and professional sports is a good thing, which is why there have to be rules in place, and why, Stephen, we should just go. Can we just go blanket 5 years? Blanket 5 years of eligibility, injuries or not. I get that that'll stink for some kids that battle injuries. I think that would be a net improvement over what we are doing right now.
Yeah, and I do want to caution everybody about the NCAA and the antitrust exemption. There could be a Ivan the Terrible type situation that is developing, and for the history nuts that's going on. Ivan the Terrible thought that he was being held back by the legislative body in Russia and just quit being king at that point, walked away. It got kind of disoriented, chaotic and everything, and they brought him back in, and then the terrible part of Ivan the Terrible got his reputation. So just because the NCAA is there doesn't mean that we need to say, hey, no, you get all of this power, because there could be some retribution over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a perfect option, but hey, 50 people were at the White House on Friday trying to figure it out, and
at a rectangle table.
At a rectangle table, yes, indeed. You know what I thought about with that? You ever see Captain America: Civil War, the Marvel movie? Mm-hmm. Great film, and there's a great line in there where Prince T'Challa says 2 men in a room can accomplish more than 100, and then his wise father comes in and says, unless you need to move a piano. It's a great line. Mm-hmm. I think about that with all this. 2 people could get it done, but can 2 people or 5 people really represent the interests of everybody? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss. Appreciate it, as always. Speaking of Ole Miss, and again, I'll point out, in case you think I planned these shows accidentally, I don't. We're going to talk about Clemson next. Why? No ties between Clemson and Ole Miss this offseason. Notably, Stephen's all thumbs up. Is Clemson done? Tom Fornelli says yes.